Hi everyone, it's Solid Raging, and we are back with Dice, Irae, Amentes. And yeah, let's, I guess, just jump in then. Looking back on things later, I would be able to say that this was where it had all begun. I thought we began like ages ago, but apparently we did not. Does my present live up to your expectations? Zarathustra. Ooh, look at her. She's pretty. And thus we met, brought together by him. Oh my god, we have a chapter. Chapter 1. Okay, it went too fast for me to pronounce it. I'm sorry, I tried. It was dark out by the time I got home. I had almost passed out of the museum earlier. I managed to make it back okay, but I still wasn't feeling too hot. At least it was consolation that Kasumi wasn't the type of person to get upset about having to deal with stuff like this. However, on the other hand... Hey, Ren, are you sure you're okay? That also meant that she was the type to fret endlessly. My current goal was to figure out some way to make her leave me alone. If I didn't, she was liable to try to spend the entire night here, watching over me or something. If you're still not feeling well, you could try lying down. Should I make you some rice porridge? Seriously, you don't need to do that. I'm fine. I'm off to bed now, so go home. I knew that she was just trying to help, but I still couldn't really think straight after what happened earlier. I probably came across as harsher than I intended. It's not like I'm some delicate flower, you know. My injuries healed up ages ago, so stop treating me like an invalid. I'm seriously gonna start feeling down if you keep being a total warrior like this. Okay, but I'm the one who asked you out today, so I feel kind of responsible. You're not the most reliable after all. And you're rude without even realizing it. She did have a point, to be fair. I wasn't the type of person people looked to for help. I'd be troubled if someone reliable like you ended up collapsing on my account, so... I'm not that fragile, and neither am I. If you're really trying to be considerate of me, then stop making me get in these pointless arguments with you. It's already going to be enough of a hassle going back to school starting tomorrow as it is. Oh, that's right. No skipping, Ren, says the girl who skipped today. I'll be fine. I make sure to go every day, so one day off won't kill me. But you probably have too many absences after being hospitalized for so long. You'll end up having to repeat a year if you keep slacking off. Look how serious she is. We both want to graduate together, right? Right. Alrighty then. Hurry up and go to bed already. Well, I was trying to, but someone just keeps running her mouth. Oh, shut up, invalid boy. No backtalk, you hear me? Ooh. Kasumi threw some sheets on top of me. Surely there were less direct methods of getting someone into bed. Okay, good night. I'll come over and wake you up in the morning. That's fine and all, but while I'm at it, yeah? Make sure you actually leave through the door this time, okay? Hey now. Did she think she could get away with anything just by laughing it off? It's just, you know, such a hassle. That hassle is considered common sense. Besides, I gestured to the wall next to me inside. The landlord's gonna get pissed if you keep it up. Just because we're next door neighbors doesn't mean you should. She would be in deep shit if the landlord found out that she had knocked out a goddamn hole in the wall and turned it into some sort of corridor. Like, this was the sort of thing people got kicked out for. Kasumi and I had moved into this apartment together when we enrolled in our current school. It took her less than a week to come up with the idea to construct this little side entrance. My mom's conditions for us living alone was that we lived next door to each other in the same apartment to help each other out. Come on, it's fine. This way it's easier to look after each other. I thought your mom expected you to go this far without it. With it, though. Not in a million years. You really think so? Yes. You're so thick-headed. Besides, didn't Shiro start all this? Don't blame everything on me. Believe it or not, she wasn't lying. Kasumi, Shiro, and myself had all lived together in this apartment complex. All 3 rooms next to each other in a row. It happened late one night out of nowhere. Shiro broke down the wall separating our rooms and barreled in here with the hammer still in his hand, saying he suddenly got the urge to play in a fighting game. How stupid could he get? So you ended up intimidating that jokester completely. Though I didn't use something as barbaric as a hammer. She was barbaric enough to go down to the hardware store the next day and buy a power saw, some tarps, and a mask at least. Anyway, as I had the bad fortune of to live in between these two idiots, I ended up with holes on both sides of my room. Privacy? What's that? Kasumi and Shiro would often just cut through here to visit each other, and my room became a sort of natural gathering place in general. At least seal up Shiro's hole. I won't. I mean, what if he comes back? There was no what if. Shiro was never coming back, whether Kasumi knew it or not. I'm sure that will go back to I'm sure things will go back to normal before the three of us again. Between the three of us again. Wow, I can't read today. It'll be you, me, and Shiro, just like old times, right? Ren? Yeah. Yep, okay, good night. Kasumi smiled sweetly and returned to her room, through the hole in the wall. I could tell by the complete lack of dust in my room that she had bothered to clean it. Yeah, that's what it says. Okay, well, I was stuck in the hospital. Probably Shiro's, too. I would never admit it out loud, but I did appreciate the consideration. At the same time, though, I couldn't help but wonder if I really deserved having her look after me like this. Kasumi knew nothing. By all rights, right now we should have been. This line of thought would get me nowhere. I decided right then and there to stop mulling over the past. What was done was done. It wasn't healthy to keep obsessing like this. There was no way the girl I saw at the museum could have actually been real. She was just a hallucination, meaningless clutter that was born from my unstable mental state. Yeah, that's it. That was the only explanation. I laid down in bed. A good night's sleep would be sure to wash away the memory of today. I wouldn't remember a thing when I woke up the next morning. I was sure of it. I stared up at my ceiling for the first time in 2 months. Amid familiar surroundings, I drifted off into sleep, gripped by a slight unease, rather than a sense of comfort. Here she comes. Ooh, ooh. Now then, let the curtains rise on tonight's grand gugnol. 'Tis a pleasure to make your acquaintance, my dear Zarathustra. I am but a humble jester come to present you with an opera. Consider me not more than a swindler, a charlatan. My name, I suppose Cagliostro, shall suffice. There's something in my eye. Ow. Do allow me to regale you tonight with the tale of a girl I met while men still called me by that name. The tale of the fair princess of the guillotine. The tale of her origins as well as how the two of us came to meet. I beg of you to forgive my brevity. It all came about as a result of simple bad luck, nothing more and nothing less. Humans are bound by their birth. The average man cannot hope to compete with an absolute brought about by sheer chance at birth, regardless of his foibles or virtues. My story deals with just such circumstances. Fortunately, there are many who fail to grasp the subtleties of these matters. Allow me to apologize for beginning by airing some tiresome grievances of mine. The less reasonable among us have a tendency to seek an explanation for anyone who they perceive as breaking the mold, be they a mighty hero, a blithering madman, or a miserable victim. Do they reach their status through tireless effort? Perhaps because they possessed a resolve. Or could it be because of some traumatic event in their past? Preposterous assumptions, the lot of them. It's all nothing more than a self-projection on the part of the common man, an expression of the fanciful idea that they, too, could have turned out that way. That they, too, are capable of reaching the same level should they be granted the same opportunity. Such sentiments are little more than masturbation, pitiful attempts to drag the supernatural down to their level and reduce it to something they are capable of understanding. Miserable knaves, the lot of them. They are incapable of cherishing their fellow man without forcing themselves to believe that all others operate on the same logic as them. Such fools would be better off conversing with a mirror. You will no doubt find tonight's story unpleasant, but I trust that your soul is not tainted enough to imitate the folly of lesser men. In this world, there exist beings of utmost purity. Yes, I speak of her. Search the entire universe, and you shall find no peers. From the moment of her birth, she was complete. She did not and would never receive even the barest mite of influence from the vulgar outside world. The scar on her neck ever flagrant. Her words pregnant only with hex. Fated to remain forlorn, doomed to never be loved. Even an existence such as mine could not compete with a being as miraculously immaculate as her. For the first time I laid eyes upon true beauty. I clutched a hand to my chest, overcome by the nature of her being. Ah, how wonderful was man to bring forth something so spectacular by mere chance. I knew immediately on some primal level that hers was not a state of being that others could hope to aspire to. One could devote his life to unraveling the mysteries of dusty grimoires and never so much as set foot upon the mystic plane that was her dominion. She was absolute in her otherness. I must confess, I found myself envious of her. I'm sure you scoff at the very notion, of course. Whew. I can say that meeting her was the one true moment of brilliance to be found amongst the miserable ordeal of my life. In a way, it represented a loss on my part, yet defeat has never tasted sweeter. I finally discovered a goal to strive toward amid the endless expanse of the wasteland that I had wandered aimlessly for so long. I shall kneel before you, my beloved queen. I shall devote my very being to you, to the task of leading your soul to salvation. That shall be my opera, the day of wrath that shall rend asunder the accursed ghetto that is this universe. Come now, 'tis time to take center stage, Zarathustra. Take her hand and lead her in dance. I would like nothing more than for you to dazzle me. Wow, that was a mouthful. Suddenly, I heard the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Ooh. I found myself standing on a mysterious beach, bathed in the crimson hue of dusk. This was a place far removed from the hectic fervor of the city. I could hear nothing but the quiet murmur of the waves and the sporadic chirping of birds somewhere in the distance. The scenery around me possessed a fleeting beauty, one brought about by the setting sun as it melted into the corners of the distant sea. This was the sort of sight that would normally vanish in an instant, but somehow I knew that here it would persist eternally. This was a moment frozen in time. Half of the sun had already sunk beyond the horizon, but the remaining half would never budge. The waves continued to roll in and out, were surely governed by something other than the tidal force I was familiar with. Suddenly I understood. This was a dream. There wasn't a beach like this anywhere near Suwahara City. Hell, it didn't even really look like somewhere in Japan. I had set foot on foreign soil, set foot on a temporal plane far removed from the present. It would seem that I understood the nature of this place on an instinctual level. By all means, I should have felt some sense of bewilderment being confronted with so surreal a scene, but I simply found myself captivated by it. There was a certain nostalgic atmosphere about the place that spoke to me. No, maybe what really drew me in was the sense of stagnation. This was a world frozen in time, possessed of the beauty of an everlasting sunset. The very concept of the flow of time was meaningless here. An eternal twilight, decorated by a sun that would never dip below the horizon. This world existed on the border between day and night, its very existence a precarious reverie fallen between the cracks of reality. I felt truly at peace here, within the concentrated moment. I sat down on the beach, absently staring out at the sea and listening to the waves. I found myself overcome with a peculiar sense of déjà vu. Even though I had never laid eyes on this place before, it was like I was already deeply familiar with it. Obviously, this was all just a dream, and it was a pleasant feeling nonetheless. Knowing that what you're dealing with in advance means that you can handle anything it might throw your way. Foreknowledge makes it possible to avoid dangerous situations and prolong pleasant ones. To make better, more meaningful decisions. What could bring about a greater sense of peace? Yes, my ideal world was knowing everything in advance, going around in circles until the day you die. Was that your heart's desire? She cut across my line of vision at nearly the exact same time as I turned around. Here she is again. For the first time, I knew what it meant to have your breath taken away. The word that immediately came to mind was enchanting. I felt certain that anyone who came across this girl on the beach would be stunned in the same way as I was. She was outfitted in a shabby, worn-out dress. No one could call her attire elegant, but on her it exuded a radiance that women of high society could never hope to attain with even their most extravagant formal wear. Her long hair emanated an auburn aura, lit up by the dull red glow of the setting sun. As she danced across the wet sand of the beach, the stark white ankles peeking out from the hem of her dress offered a sharp contrast to the warm colors of the world around her. She turned to face me, emerald eyes gleaming with a gentle light. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. She was like a gemstone cut into human form. As I stared, she began to sing, a ghost of a smile playing across her face. I could only give myself unto her song, and to the sweet refrain brought forth by her heavenly voice. The words la enfant de la punition suddenly flashed through my head. I didn't know what those words meant or why they came to me now. Her song was a melody unfamiliar to me. However, I felt certain that it was some form of prayer, perhaps a hymn, unbeknownst to all but her. The girl before me was utterly pure, removed from our base world. How could a melody spilling forth from the lips of a being so immaculate be anything but a prayer? Was it possible to listen to a song you had never heard before within a dream? I didn't know, but there was no sense in pondering such questions. She was beautiful, plain, and simple. That was enough to make everything else seem... Something felt vaguely out of place. Was I overlooking something important? The stirring of emotion I had felt up to that point dissolved. Listening with a clear head, the lyrics of her song began to form intelligible sentences. I had been a fool. Throughout Japan's history, twilight, the borderline between day and night, had been regarded as the time when the boundaries between the natural and supernatural grew thin. Twilight was when the inhuman walked among the living. All along, this girl had been mad. Blood, blood, blood. It wants blood. Shower the guillotine with drink. May the guillotine's thirst be quenched. What it wants is blood, blood, blood. She continued singing, the same smile as ever adorning her features. Her emerald eyes were as clear as the surface of a pristine lake, without a trace of malevolence to be found. Which was precisely why the scene before me was so horrifying. She possessed a childlike innocence, in jarring contrast to the utter profanity of her accursed song. Blood, 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 it wants blood. Her song reverberated inside my head, splitting itself into seemingly endless echoes. As I stared at her, I caught a glimpse of the crimson band around her neck through her disheveled hair. Unmistakably the work of a guillotine's blade. What it wants is blood, blood, blood. This was the same girl I had met in the museum, the cursed girl, who had met her end by the guillotine. The damned girl, l'enfant de la punition. It wants blood. I was assaulted by a sudden brutal impact, as if I'd been hit by a semi. My vision went black. In the next moment, I found myself in the midst of a turbulent crowd gathered around gallows set up in the center of a plaza. A turn of sheer delirium, fueled by fear and hatred and a dark elation, consumed everything. The scenery around me, little more than churning chaos. A deafening chorus filled my ears. Blood, 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 it wants blood. Je vous la sang, 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 et sang. Shower the guillotine with drink. Donnons le sang de guillotine. May the guillotine's thirst be quenched. Pour guérir la sécheresse de la guillotine. I really apologize for butchering this. What it wants is blood, blood, blood. Je veux le sang, 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 et sang. The frenzied crowd was singing the same song that I had heard only moments earlier, back in the time period when public execution like this were commonplace. It must have been the hymn they offered before the guillotine. The the clergy and the common man had come together, all for the simple purpose of seeing a criminal decapitated before their eyes, to see my head fly from my shoulders. That's right, don't ask me why, but the criminal strapped to the guillotine was none other than myself. Next to me, some sort of official was calling out to the crowd, speaking a language I didn't understand. It would seem he was recruiting a volunteer to act as the executioner. It wasn't long before a man emerged from the crowd. He released the guillotine's blade, and my head tumbled to the ground, bathed in the clear tones of the ethereal dusk. My spine was severed in an instant, inducing ataxia, but my ability to feel pain had been lost along with the connection between my brain and the rest of my body. I could do nothing but stare up at my headless body as it spewed forth blood. Ah, my heart was still beating. I wanted nothing more than to extend a hand to my body, but that was impossible now. Blood, blood, blood. It was blood. All I could do was lie on the ground listening to that abominable refrain. Whew. Alright. That's a good time to end things. Yay. Well, that was some dream. Good lord. Alright. Well, I'll keep reading the story. And hopefully I will see you guys next time. Bye.